Lesson 4, Key Percentages and Probabilities. This lesson covers important percentages and probabilities that you will see continually at the poker tables. It is broken down into 3 sections. First, key percentages. This section covers percentages that you will see repeatedly during Texas No Limit Hold'em tournaments. Knowing them can help you make good decisions on when to check, call, fold, raise, re-raise, or go all in. Second, probabilities needed to call a bet. This table has been created to show you the percentage of time you need to be right to break even if you decide to call a bet. It can be especially useful for all-in moves from an opponent. And third, the 13 critical hands that you need to know the probabilities of before the flop. This is one of my favorite tables. It has 13 hands that you will see repeatedly and how your hand will match up against an opponent's hand. Learning these hands can give you a nice little edge at the tables when you can guesstimate what another player may be holding.
Key percentages. In a standard deck of playing cards, there are 4 suits with 13 cards per suit, making a total of 52 cards in a deck. Simple enough. In Texas No Limit Hold'em, there are 1,326 possible starting hand combinations. Because there are multiple combinations of the same hands, there are only 169 unique hand combinations. Let's look at the type of hands you're going to get. First of all, 70.5% of all hands dealt are non-suited cards. 5.9% of all hands dealt are pocket pairs, and 23.5% of all hands dealt are suited cards. You will get suited connectors 3.9% of the time and suited one-gappers 3.6% of the time for a total of 7.5% of the time. Now, let's look at draw probabilities on and after the flop. Flopping at least one pair. There is a 32% probability you will flop at least one pair with 2 random cards, 1 out of 3 times. You will flop your top pair 17% of the time, 1 out of 6 times. The same is true for everyone else. Getting dealt pocket pairs. You will get dealt a pocket pair approximately 6% of the time. That's 1 out of 17 times. With a pocket pair, there is a 12% probability, 1 out of 8 times, of hitting a set on the flop. A set is one of the most disguised hands in poker. When played correctly, it has the potential for taking down a huge pot. And there is a 19% probability that you will hit a set by the river if you go all in before the flop. If you get a set on the flop, there is a 15% probability, 7 out of 47, of getting a boat or quads on the turn, and a 22% probability, 10 out of 46, of getting a boat or quads on the river. A flush draw. When you have been dealt 2 suited cards, you will get a flush draw on the flop 11% of the time and a made flush 0.8% of the time. After the flop, there is a 19% probability of hitting your flush either on the turn or river card. After the flop, there is a 35% probability of hitting your flush if you go all in, and we'll see both the turn and river cards. If you get a flush, it may take down a huge pot. A straight draw. If you have an open-ended straight or double gut shot draw after the flop, there is a 17% probability of hitting your straight on either the turn or river card. After the flop, there is a 31% probability of hitting your open-ended straight if you will see both the turn and river cards. You have a 9% probability of getting a straight with a gut shot draw on the turn or river card. After the flop, there is a 16% probability of hitting your gut shot if you will see both the turn and river cards. Getting dealt 2 pair. There is a 2% probability of getting dealt 2 pair on the flop with 2 random cards, 1 out of 50 times. If you have 2 pair on the flop, there is a 9% probability you will get a boat on the turn or river card. There is a 16% probability that you will get a boat if you will see both the turn and river cards. Here are some key notes. First, the percentages have been rounded. Second, all numbers assume you don't know any other player's cards. Third, the core math section will help show how some of these key percentages are determined. And finally, this has been a quick overview of the key percentages. I hope it hasn't been too mind-numbing. I wanted to cover these early in the course because later on when we get into player patterns, we're going to talk about how you can use these key percentages as significant weapons against your opponents. And this will help make you a very powerful player. So stay tuned. Probabilities needed to call a bet. Hand equities constantly change. Analyzing your equity at any point in a hand is essential. Besides the math, it is crucial to know the range of hands an opponent may be playing so you can make an educated guess on when you call or fold to a bet. The table shown here has been created to show you the percentage of time you need to be right to break even if you decide to call a bet. It can be especially useful for all-in moves from an opponent. The pot size is consistent at 10,000 for ease of use. At the tables, you're going to need to adjust accordingly. As I mentioned before, it's easier to teach in black and white. The world runs in shades of gray. "13 critical hands to know the probabilities of before the flop." This is definitely one of my favorite tables in the book and the course here, and the reason for that is by memorizing most of these numbers, I've been able to use them at the tables effectively on numerous occasions. If you want to take your game to another level, understanding these probabilities and memorizing them can be very useful at the tables. The table itself shows the 13 hands you'll get dealt repeatedly and how your hand will match up against one other opponent. Of course, you will be on either side of the probabilities shown. Thus, there are 26 critical hands to know. For example, in hand number 10, if you have one overcard, you will be ahead approximately 58% of the time before the flop. However, if your opponent has one overcard, then he will be ahead approximately 58% of the time. The numbers provided in this table are approximations. They change with different cards and whether they are suited. Also, the closer the cards are together, the greater your hand equity due to straight draw probabilities. Consequently, use this chart as ballpark probabilities at the tables to make mathematically correct decisions. In the notes on the right hand, this shows about the probabilities of getting suited cards, as I just talked about. Also down here, it's really important that one gappers are approximately 1% less in expected value than connectors before the flop. This will become very important if you do small ball type playing, which we'll discuss in a future section of this course.